Awesome. So first and foremost, I just wanted to thank you for organizing this. And for those of you that joined this session, I wanted to spend the next hour or so to cover some of the service launches we saw during reInvent late last year, and I have a lot to cover because I have collected a couple of new features and updates for all these categories, including things like IML, data analytics, compute networking, and so on and so forth. So we have a lot to cover, and I'm intending to do a Q&A at the end of the session so that you may ask questions related to any specific services or any specific features you're gonna see during this talk, right? So first thing that I wanted to cover are the launch that helps builders create and develop on top of AWS. So the first one is the AWS Application Composer, which is a service that helps you visualize, compose, and set up AWS services into serverless applications. So for those of you that are new to serverless, you might experience a steep learning curve when trying to compose applications out of multiple AWS servers. So sometimes it turns out to be hard, right? And then we have created AWS Composer, which helps you visualize and set up AWS services into the specific application. So it's really straightforward. It's like using a IDE that you are familiar to work with, like Visual Studio Code and things like that, where you pretty much can drag and drop, grouping components that are related to each other, and then it's going to create all the components and relationships between all of the services you are using. For example, you may have API gateway, which is exposing several Lambda functions, which access a DynamoDB table, which eventually is triggered by a kinesis string and things like that. So we have an overall view on how the components are correlated to each other, and the CloudFormation code that is produced as a result of this specific diagram. This is one of the key things we have introduced, focused on helping developers to be more to have more productivity with AWS. The next one is the code catalyst, which is pretty much a platform which provides software development teams with an integrated project experience that brings together the typical tools needed to plan, to code, build, and test and deploy applications on AWS. So tools like GitHub, Jira Software, and things like that. You may have a single pane of glass where you may combine all of them, and you're gonna have a single experience across the board. And you may integrate with existing sources you have, or you may create your own blueprint which combines all of them into a single place, just for the sake of ease for those developers using this type of platforms for the software development lifecycle. The next one that I wanted to cover is the Amazon Code Whisper. Basically, just as a reminder, when we writing code, we must keep up with multiple programming language, frameworks, software libraries, and different in a range of different cloud services, right? So, however, when we are developing, we are pretty much typing the source code. We are adding comments and things like that. And basically what this service does is to automatically analyze the comment and determine which cloud services and public libraries are best suited for the specific task. So in other words, let's say, for example, you can see in this screenshot using a Python code, which is to upload a file into a Amazon S3 bucket, right? So I may just pretty much add a few comments, and then Code Whisper is going to identify what I'm trying to achieve, what I'm trying to accomplish, and come up with a recommendation, and then I may or may not accept, and I can continue developing. So here is a demo on what the Amazon Code Whisper looks like. So as you may see here, in this case, the developer is writing some code in IDE, and then the Code Whisper understands from what's being written that the developer is writing some Python code and wants to use AWS S3, right? And then the developer says, write me a function to upload data from S3 using encryption. And that's all that Code Whisper needs to come up with this snippet of code. And then we may insert the code, we may accept, and we can use that. And you can take advantage of this functionality for different IDEs, as well as it support not only Python, but C#, TypeScript, Java, and many other languages, as I just showed. And when it comes to serverless, one of the key announcements is around Lambda functions, which with a functionality that goes by the name of snap start, which pretty much aims to reduce the cold start when you are creating your Java applications. So the bottom line is that this functionality is aiming to reduce the init phase of the function invocation. So just as a reminder, we have basically three phases, right? So in many cases, the execution of Lambda functions takes milliseconds to begin. But sometimes the init phase can take longer due to a number of reasons. When we are developing our Java runtimes and use case, for example, you may have some specific libraries, or you may have you are using or you are accessing a database pool, and you are initializing a couple of variables within your source code that takes some time for the function to be initialized, right? So what we are trying to achieve with this is that we are splitting the problem into three different phases, right? So in the init phase, which is when we create an execution environment and download the source code and start the runtime. Sometimes this is the one that takes a lot of time. And then once we enable snap start on a specific Lambda function, the flow for a new version will look like just publish a new version of that function, and then the process will allow the function and run through the entire init phase. And once we finish that, immutable and encrypted snapshot of the memory and disk state is then cached for reuse. And the next time when the function is invoked, the state is retrieved from the cache instead, which reduce the amount of time by up to 90% based on some of the benchmarks we have used. So this is a kind of functionality which really helps those developers that are struggling with reduce the amount of time and are struggling with the cold start, which is the time taken for creating the execution environment, download the source code, and initialize some of the things that a developer has added during the initialize phase of a specific Java function. A new functionality which we have introduced within Amazon Event Bridge, it's the Event Bridge pipes, which you can use to integrate AWS and self-managed services as event producers and event consumers into a single application. Pretty much you can just identify where your event source are. For example, you may have DynamoDB, Kinesis, SQS, and then you may apply some filter to those events to select those messages that you wanted to handle and manage, and then you are considered to process. And then as a second step, you may enrich, which is pretty much a transformation phase where you are combining information with different payloads, with different data sets, and then you may send a new message to the destination, which could be a event bus or an API destination. So in other words, you may see this as a way to implement a service bus with operations like filtering, map, and enrichment for a variety of different services. And everything can do out of the box. So you don't need to implement any source code, and you basically can map all the services by using drag and drop. One additional thing that we have introduced within the AWS step functions is the new distributed map state, which allows developers or software engineers to write step functions to coordinate large-scale parallel workloads within their serverless applications. So you may have up to 10,000 executions in parallel. Sometimes for each of the items, you may trigger or you may invoke a different service to deal with that particular upload. And this is particularly important when you have a data set or you have a payload where you have a master document and a parent and child documents where you need to invoke different services to deal with that particular record. And this is implemented out of the box, and you may use AWS step functions to coordinate this for you in a smoother way. When it comes to integration with third-party services, you may use Amazon AppFlow, which supports over 50 applications, different applications. You may see a huge list of services you may integrate with this platform. So pretty much you can use this to support customers in building and managing their modern data architecture by connecting with and accessing data from many different sources like this you have in this list. And also you can take advantage of the AppFlow and using the Amazon Data Handler, which is used by SageMaker, AWS Glue and some of the other data analytics services to connect, for example, your data sets to train your machine learning model with applications that are outside AWS, for example. I'm going to introduce some of the new features we have introduced, but we have expanded the number, we have increased the number of connectors with Amazon Airflow. Specifically about DevOps, I wanted to cover within this section the launch focus on resilience, deployment, and observability, right? The first one that I wanted to cover, it's a new functionality within ECS, which is called ECS Service Connect. So as you guys are really familiar with, every microservice architecture are well-known software development approach composed of small independent services communicating over well-defined APIs, right? So the bigger your application becomes, the harder it is to manage and to implement some specialized networking rules to be able to connect to all of this. So this is exactly where ECS Service Connect comes in, since it provides an easy network setup and seamless service communication deployed across multiple ECS clusters and VPC. So in other words, this is a service mesh for ECS, which streamlines the overall process to consume services using multiple ECS clusters and multiple VPCs deployed across multiple AWS accounts. So you, for example, may use AWS Cloud Map and automatically distribute traffic between ECS tasks without deploying and setting up load balancers, because it provides this functionality for individuals and for developers, software engineers leverage this particular functionality. On top of that, I wanted to call out on a new functionality which is focused more on the database side, which is the new Amazon RDS blue-green deployment, which is a new functionality which provides this capability to Amazon RDS MySQL, MariaDB, and Amazon Aurora, where pretty much with just a few steps, you can use blue-green deployments to create separate, synchronized, and fully managed staging environment that are pretty much a mirror of the production environment. So this staging environment clones users' production environment, primary database in region replicas. So eventually, these blue-green deployments keep these two environments in sync using logical replication. But you can turn to me and say, "Hey, Andre, this is something that I can use this. I'm able to achieve this using ready replicas and clones and things like that." And the answer is yes, but the point is that we have done this. Everything available through the AWS console, and all these steps to switch over and fail over and fail back are automated out of the box. So you don't need to do this with a few manual steps. So everything has been automated for all of these RDS service engines, and also Amazon Aurora. There is a new functionality that you may be experienced with, which is the AWS Elastic Disaster Recovery which helps customers to use AWS as an elastic recovery site for on-premises applications without needing to invest in on-premises disaster recovery infrastructure. And then this is something that has been introduced for some time. So once this functionality is enabled, this DRS or elastic disaster recovery maintains a constant replication for keeping the operating system, application, and database in sync. But now we have introduced a support. Now this DRS also supports in AWS failback, adding to the existing support for this recovery drills and on-premises failback, included in the original release. So in other words, the new automated support provides a simplified and an expedited experience to fail back and to EC2 to the original region, and both failover and failback process for on-premises or in AWS recovery, as you guys are seeing in this slide deck. So this is a new functionality which makes the process even easier to fail back and fail over, even between using even if you whether you are using on-premises or AWS for as your recovery site. When it comes to monitoring capabilities, we have introduced the Internet Monitor, which is a new capability of CloudWatch that gives visibility into how internet issue might impact the performance and availability of applications. So basically, it allows users to reduce the time it takes to diagnose internet issues from days to minutes. And this is the same data that we internally use at AWS to monitor our own internet uptime and availability. So with this functionality, you can gain visibility of problems that arise on the internet experienced by your end users in different geographic locations and networks. As you can see here on this slide deck, this dashboard provides information on some outage in Las Vegas, Nevada, for a couple of users trying to access your website. So you have identified with this, it has provided some insight that users based on that particular region, which use a specific internet service provider, are going through some connection issues, and then you may use this to narrow down a solution or to expedite the resolution for any particular networking problem. We also have added the CloudWatch logs data protection, which is basically a feature which allows to identify and detect some sensitive log data in transit. For example, you may have the social security numbers and some other private data that should not be open while passing through some of the services, and you may leverage or passing through some of the services or within the log. So you may leverage this to provide and protect some sensitivity data that is in transit. And this functionality is already GA. And also we have the Amazon S3 multi-region access point, which gives users, individuals, a global endpoint that expands S3 buckets in multiple AWS regions, right? So this is a functionality, and basically it uses the AWS Global Accelerator to monitor network congestion and connectivity to route traffic to the closest copy of the data. And at reInvent, we added failover controls for multi-region access points. So these controls let individuals, users, to shift S3 data access request traffic through an Amazon S3 multi-region access point to an alternate AWS region within minutes to test and build highly available applications for business continuity. So in this slide deck, you may see what it looks like and what are the options to route your request to the nearest S3 bucket to keep the same experience for all the users across the board. And one additional functionality, which is really cool and really important, is the zonal shift, which is a capability built into Elastic Load Balancers, and it is exposed via Route 53 Application Recovery Controller, or Route 53 ARC. Basically allows the users, individuals, to shift traffic from a particular availability zone, which might be experiencing a higher latency, right? So, and move traffic to healthy availability zone nodes. So this is a really important feature, but the recommendation is that you move traffic toward the healthy zone, the healthy availability zones. Only move to the health availability zones just for test purpose, and when you identify the bottleneck or the issue that is produced that is resulting in this particular outage or issues with latency, you may switch back to the previous availability zone. So this was, in other words, this was really designed to be a temporary fix. And so that's why we use the expired Zine flag to give just a few hours for individuals or for admins to identify the root cause of any specific higher latency issue to be able to fix the problem. Now, moving forward, I wanted to call out on some of the key functionalities, updates, and new features we also introduced for the AI ML stack, right? So one of the key functionalities that we have introduced is the new built-in data preparation capability, which undercovers uses Amazon SageMaker Data Handler and is available within SageMaker Studio notebooks, right? Pretty much what happens is that, as you saw here, the SageMaker Studio notebook automatically generate key visualizations on top of Panda data frames, which helps data science and data engineers to understand data distribution and also identify data quality issues as they are creating their own source code. So this is a key functionality to streamline and to speed up the development process for using SageMaker notebooks. A second one is one that's called the real-time collaboration, which offers shared spaces that give data science and those machine learning teams a workspace where they can read, edit, and run notebooks together in real time to streamline collaboration and communication, even during the development process. So these two functionalities really uh, makes the developer lives easier so when they are creating their notebooks to do some data processing and to start analyzing their data set and do some data visualization as well. One additional capability that was introduced is the ability to automatically convert notebook code to production ready jobs. So now you can select a notebook and automate is as a job that can run in a production environment without the need to manage the underlying infrastructure. So in other words, when you create a SageMaker notebook, the SageMaker Studio takes a snapshot of the entire notebook, package its dependencies in a container. Then it builds the infrastructure, runs the notebook as an automated job on a schedule you may define, and then it provisions all the infrastructure once the job is completed. So it's a it's really a process to streamline everything that has been created by a developer and be able to have this in production in just a matter of clicks. When it comes to machine learning, a key functionality that we have introduced was the geospatial machine learning with Amazon SageMaker. So in our day-to-day activities, we may use apps to find our favorite restaurant or to travel to the fastest route using geospatial data. Uh, when it comes to specific geospatial data, there are different types of data. For example, you have vector data that use two-dimensional geometries uh, for building location like points, rows with lines or polygons. But what happens is that if you wanted to make predictions from geospatial data using machine learning um, algorithms, there are a lot of challenges that include acquiring and accessing high quality geospatial data sets, preparing massive geospatial data. You eventually need some specialized tools to visualize this geospatial data. And what we have made available to within the SageMaker's notebook as a new functionality is that you can now easily build, train, and deploy machine learning models using those geospatial data, right? And you can take advantage of this to uh, for a variety of different use cases. For example, uh, you may find data from different sources, and you are able to plot your geospatial data to identify issues within a specific region of your map and things like that. When it comes to Amazon SageMaker Data Handler, as I mentioned, you can now, this is a new functionality, or you can now aggregate external SaaS application data for machine learning in Amazon SageMaker Data Handler to prepare data for machine learning. So using the Amazon AppFlow, which has over more than 50 applications as you can see in this catalog, you may use this to incorporate data from external sources for you to train your model. And this is available out of the box. And then you can incorporate to do data preparation and data transformation within your machine learning pipeline. Another functionality that we have introduced is the ability to use SageMaker Data Handler, which is, as I just mentioned, is an easy way to do data preparation and data processing workloads. But when it comes to transformations, customers also need to apply the customer data for model training during real-time inference. So we have then introduced the real-time and batch inference in Data Handler, which deploys data preparation flows from Data Handler for real-time and batch inference. So you may reuse the data transformation flow and speed up your overall production environment by using this functionality with your data in production. So we also, speaking with customer and based on their feedback, we have introduced some enhancements when it comes to governance tools. So now you have the Amazon SageMaker model dashboard, which is a single pane of glass where you can quickly audit and troubleshoot performance for all your models, endpoints, and model monitoring jobs through one single pane of glass. So you can do things like creating a single source of truth for model information and centralize and standardize documentation throughout the model lifecycle. One of the things that we didn't have in the past, you had the ability to create your own models, but you didn't have a way to a centralized model for all and to do some documentation and to simplify access control and overall enhance the transparency across the board. So now we have introduced this new functionality as well as created the Amazon SageMaker Role Manager, which is a new feature which streamlined the process to share data models, data transformation across different machine learning teams. For example, you may have data science role, ML ops engineer role, and with different permissions, and each of these individuals or groups, they may have different set of activities, and then now you have the capability to do this fine-grained access, to provide this fine-grained and simplify access control across different teams with a role manager. One additional functionality that we have introduced is that now the SageMaker Jumpstart gives you access to, now can give you access to share more easily with other users all the machine learning artifacts such as models, notebooks, endpoints, and things like that with different teams and different individuals that are participating in the overall machine learning model creation. And also we have introduced shadow mode, which is basically a clone of the production environment data for test purposes, right? So you may use this for testing, and once you identify that you need to make a few changes, you may use something that is called the deployment guardrails for SageMaker inference endpoints to update this new model into production. Right, so this is a way to help developers, data science, machine learning engineers to do some real tasks with real data into development environment and staging environment. And then once they realize a few changes needs to take place, they can move this by using some of the guardrails with SageMaker inference endpoints, which is a great breakthrough for the overall machine learning ML ops experience. Also, we have expanded the use case coverage. Now we have introduced a new analyze landing API for help analyze and classify documents with information regarding mortgage, loan, application packages, and helping them to extract the data using the Amazon Tax Writer out of the box. So this could be a breakthrough and a great improvement to the overall API, which is focused on this particular use case we have identified with some of the customers. So we have introduced this for developers to make the most of this functionality. Also, we have using the same idea and the same process and based on customer feedback, we have introduced support to process IDPs, which stands for intelligent document processing. So, in other words, many customers need to process documents that have a semi-structured format, like images or receipts that were scanned or a text statements in PDF format. So we have introduced this functionality to allow developers to classify and extract entities from these PDF documents, Word files, and eventually images directly from Amazon Comprehend without then needing to extract the text first, right? So it's just a single step, and you may combine some OCR and Comprehend natural language processing capability to do that job directly without this additional step. When it comes to data analytics, we also have created new services, as you probably have seen, and some new functionalities. One of the key ones is a service that we announced at reInvent, which is the Amazon Data Zone, which is a service to catalog and share data across the entire organization. So this particular functionality brings together data tools and governance to provide an easy way to organize and discover data across the organization, no matter the type of user. If you are either a business analyst or a data analyst user, you may use this data zone to share, search, and discover data at scale across organization boundaries, right? We also have created AWS cleaning rules, and pretty much this was based on customer feedback and things we have seen while customers were trying to creating data sets and implement customer 360 experience. Because how can we enable mechanisms for these customers to match, analyze, and collaborate on their data on AWS with either partners or agencies or media publishers who may or may not be running on AWS, but that doesn't require them to move, share, or review raw data. So for example, you don't want to share your data set with particular customer data or um, data that should be not should not be shared with external consumers. So basically, we have created these clean rules, which allows to mask and collaborate with hundreds of thousands of companies without sharing this data. And you can mask your entire data set and share within without revealing any private data. We also have introduced the open source serverless, which automatically provisions and scales the underlying resources to deliver fast data ingestion. So we had the AWS OpenSearch, and now we have made the serverless version of that available for customers looking for this serverless option for this particular service as well. And here is a summary of some of the key announcements, new functionalities, and some of the updates we added for AWS Glue, right? So we have added support to the latest Spark and Python release. We have also introduced AWS Glue for Array, which is based on the data integration with Array.io, which is a popular open source compute framework that helps developers scale Python workloads. We also have introduced support for Apache Spark, which now we are supporting 3 open source data lake storage frameworks: Apache Hudi, Apache Iceberg, and also the Linux Foundation Delta Lake, and custom visual transform which provides with creating sure ETL logic input on the studio. So we have made some great progress with AWS Glue to streamline the overall user experience based on customer feedback and what we have seen in the overall industry when it comes to ETL. We also announced the GA of Amazon Athena for Apache Spark, which is an Athena feature that obviously enables Apache Spark interactive analytics quicker because you don't need to plan, configure, and manage resource. With this feature, basically, you can start using Spark applications in just a matter of seconds and run faster with the optimized Spark runtime. And here is a summary on some of the key announcement we have done within Redshift. So one of the key ones was the dynamic data mask, which is a new feature for those that want to protect sensitivity data by managing data mask policies through a SQL interface. This is a new functionality. We also have introduced the auto copy from Amazon S3, so users don't have to do multiple copy statements. So now they can use a single process to do a simple and local data ingestion to copy multiple files and buckets into Redshift as well. Also, we have provided some native integration with Kinesis data streams and manage streaming for Apache Kafka, which is the MSK, without staging data in S3. So we have done a significant amount. I have done a significant improvement for the overall Redshift experience based on some of the customers' requests. One additional example is the Apache Spark integration, where you can author Apache Spark applications using Java, Python, Scala, with access to rich and curated data within the data warehouse created within Amazon Redshift, and also the multi-availability zone deployment capability. One additional support we have introduced is that this zero ETL integration now enables users to analyze data from multiple Aurora database clusters in the same new or existing Redshift instance across many applications or partitions. So we have made these available as a preview at this point, but you can start experimenting with this functionality to integrate and do this zero ETL integration between these two AWS services. We also introduced the data sharing access control, which enables Redshift customers to centrally manage access to their Redshift data stores with AWS Lake Formation. So you may have different instances, different clusters, and you centrally manage access to that data across all consuming data sources using AWS Lake Formation. This is also similarly to what we have introduced within SageMaker, is a way to improve the overall governance for the data analytics category as well. And here is a summary on the quick updates we have added to QuickSight. So there are the paginated reports, which allows customers to create or schedule highly formatted multi-page report and schedule data export at scale with QuickSight. So you may create batch to produce reports. We have automated data preparation for QuickSight Queue, which is a new machine learning powered semantic inference capability in Amazon QuickSight Queue. We have introduced the QuickSight API, which provide access to underlying data models using QuickSight dashboard report analysis. You may integrate it with the SDK into your DevOps pipeline if need to be, and some other additional enhancements to the overall platform. And this is really key. This is really key as well. The Amazon RDS optimized reads and writes, which allows users to use a queue up to 50% faster with optimized reads, and the optimized writes deliver an improvement of up to 2 times in write transactions, because this functionality achieves faster query processing, for example, for optimized reads by placing those temporary tables generated by MySQL on top of NVMe-based SSD block storage. That's why we are able to achieve this impressive figures and enhancements when it comes to the overall performance. And we also, this is just a new improvement, but it's worth mentioning, which we are providing support for Amazon open source serverless as a stream delivered destination for Amazon Kinesis data firewalls. We also are creating the Amazon DocumentDB Elastic cluster, which flexibly scales to petabytes of data, and it provides availability across three availability zones with data replication to 6 locations across 3 availability zones for high durability. We didn't have this in the past, and now we have provided this. So for those of you that have worked with this is our implementation of MongoDB. DocumentDB has MongoDB compatibility and has introduced this Elastic cluster out of the box. When it comes to compute, we have, of course, made some progress on the overall Nitro system. So we now have this Nitro V5, which has 2 times more transistors, 50% faster G-run speed, and 2 times more PCI bandwidth, and which results in 60% higher PPS, 30% lower latency, and 40% better performance per watt. And then as a result, we are leveraging some new Graviton instances, for example, the C7 GN, which is powered by AWS Graviton 3 processors and the latest generation Nitro V5 cards, right? And that's why we are able to achieve this performance improvement. So we also have this HPC 7G, which is focused on some of the HPC workloads like weather forecasting, life sciences, and industrial engineering, which are not usual workloads, and many of them do a lot more floating point and vector math than normal applications, and that's the specific use case that we are covering through this particular EC2 instance. We also have the Amazon EC2 Infi2, which is designed to deliver high performance at the lowest cost in Amazon EC2 for the most demanding deep learning inference application. So this EC2 inference is powered by up to 12 AWS Inference 2 and may achieve 4 times higher throughput and up to 10 times lower latency compared to Inference 1 instances. So this is something that is still in preview mode, but you may request access in case you wanted to use and experiment with this particular instance. We also have created we have made some improvements to some memory optimized instances, right, and improving the high clock frequency. Also, we have made some improvements to the general purpose and memory optimized instances with high clock frequencies. And when it comes to AWS Compute Optimizer and being able to have an overall view on the specific EC2 instance, now we are able to obtain data from third-party tools like Datadog, Dynatrace, and New Relic, to CloudWatch to provide information on the overall instance performance, right? So some of them that are optimized, over provisioned, under provisioned, and that could be used to provide some insights on top of the one that are provided out of the box within CloudWatch. And specifically to EC2, there is a new feature which benefits write operations with MySQL and MariaDB database for increased database write throughput. This is what is called EC2 Tor wire privation, or also known as atomic writes or optimized write, which is now available on all Nitro instances for EBS. So basically what customers can do is to increase the number of transactions processed per second by up to 30% without having to over provision or scale up their cluster, because this functionality ensures that full 16 kilobytes write operations are persisted to the block storage to make the most of this particular functionality. And this is available out of the box and while using all the Nitro instances with Amazon EBS. When it comes to networking, we have made available a new service which is called the Amazon VPC Lattice, which is an application layer, networking layer service that gives users a consistent way to connect and secure and monitor source communication without any network expertise. So you may use this, for example, to connect and provide consistency across compute servers. So you may have, for example, microservices that are based on EC2, ECS, and Lambda, and also EKS Kubernetes. And you may provide networking access with different VPCs, different accounts, like a source mesh, right? And the benefit of this is that it's transparent to the type of service. You don't need to rely on the specific service. For example, Kubernetes provides a service mesh. There are some options, right, out there. But this one goes beyond and provides this functionality for cross-account, cross-VPC connection to services, and is application aware. And all these routes are application aware. So you may use this to provide some zero trust architectures and centralized control of inbound and outbound traffic. So here are some of the use cases that may be used where users may leverage VPC Lattice. On top of that, it's worth mentioning that a couple of major enhancement has been implemented for load balancing. For example, now we are able to set up Route 53 ARC zonal shift for application load balancing and network load balance, as I previously explained. Now application load balancer now supports turning cross-zone load balancing off for a specific zone isolation. There are some improvement when it comes to network load balance configurability and things like that. When it comes to networking enhancement, the VPC reachability analyzer now supports network analysis between AWS resources across different AWS accounts in a specific AWS organization, allowing users to trace and to troubleshoot the network reachability across all the AWS organization. On the other side, when it comes to network management, now you can monitor the real-time and historical performance of the AWS global network for operational and planning purposes, right? This is a new functionality that has been introduced within the network manager. And last but not least, when it comes to networking, we have made some improvements to by enabling the benefits of SRD protocol to be applied to general net workloads. Just as a reminder, the SRD, which stands for Scalable Reliable Datagram, it is an AWS network transport protocol, which instead of preserving packet order, it sends the packets over as many networks paths as possible, and at the same time avoid overloaded paths. So as a result, users using this functionality may have higher throughput and more consistent latency, especially in long tail areas, for example. So this is really a great feature that now general workloads can benefit from. And when it comes to the security and compliance category, we have made we have made some big announcements while we introduced the Amazon Verified Permissions, which is a solution or a platform which is a fine-grained permission management and authorization service for custom applications. So basically, this serves centralized permissions for custom applications and help developers authorize user actions within the applications and integrate with existing services like Amazon Cognito, API Gateway, AppSync, AWS, and Lambda, and incorporate this into the custom applications and while creating their modern applications and their microservices based on these technologies. Also, we have introduced the Amazon Security Lake, Amazon Security Lake, which is a new security service that automates the sourcing, aggregation, normalization, enrichment, and data management of security-related data across an entire organization into a single source of truth with data lake. And then you may benefit from AWS logs and incorporate and expand with different data sets that may or may not be within AWS. We are before this functionality with Amazon Inspector for Lambda functions, customers that wanted to analyze their mixed workloads, sometimes they had EC2 instances, container images, and Lambda functions against common vulnerabilities. They needed to use AWS and mix and match with some third-party tools, right? And now they may use Inspector to monitor them all from a single place. That's the improvement here. So one can use this Amazon Inspector for the Lambda functions, and now you are able to expand into all of the existing workloads, either EC2 instances or Lambda functions, you name it. You can use Amazon Inspector to identify and automate continual vulnerability management at scale. We also have added a new functionality on top of guard duty, which is an expansion of the guard duty threat detection, which uses anomaly detection to detect suspicion logins to Aurora database to help customer better protect also guard duty RDS, right? This is the functionality we have expanded. So now they can take advantage of this for this particular services as well, and this is available as a preview at this point. We also have introduced the AWS verified access, which is a functionality that provide secure network access without requiring companies or enterprise to implement a VPN to corporate applications. So, in other words, these services allows users that needs remote access to applications when on the road or working from home without requiring setting up a VPN. So what happens is that once the remote workforce is authenticated on the VPN, they need to set up they have to have access to a broad range of application, and sometimes that can be a nightmare for admins to set up. So by using this service, you don't need to do all these complex network setup, because this service makes the admin life easier, where it makes them able to set up access without setting up all this VPN configuration and setup. So what are the use cases? The use cases are pretty much to improve the end user experience, especially for those that are working remote and don't want to rely on VPN to have different set of access for different applications for authorization and authentication purposes, right? And the overall experience is to streamline the admin's life with this new functionality and this new service. So just to wrap up, there are a few other services that we have introduced. For example, the Amazon Omics, which offers a core set of benefits for those users that wanted to securely combine the genome data of individuals with their medical history to deliver more personalized care. So this is a solution that you may leverage for customers on the healthcare industry to integrate with their existing solutions and provide and store, query, and analyze everything related to genome and DNA data and provide a single source of truth which is complies with standards like the HIPAA, GPR, and so on and so forth. Supply chain is another example of where customers are asking AWS to solve for complexity and remove constraints. For example, this is a cloud-based application that unifies data, provides machine learning powered insights, and offer built-in collaboration for allowing existing enterprise existing ERPs to integrate it with supply chain management systems without requiring replatforming or additional licensing fees or long-term commitment. So this is a new services that we have introduced and is more focused on the industry services that we made available at reInvent 2022. And also we have introduced the AWS Scene Space Weaver, which is a managed service that let individuals, customers to create expansive simulation worlds for implement things like digital twins, and you are able to fully manage compute service to have deploy large scale spatial simulations. Um, you can use this to build local development environments to test hardware, to run game engines like Unity or Unreal Engine 5, or you may create your own custom simulation engine. So you may leverage this service for a multitude of different use cases, right? So things you can do with that, for example, real world simulations like city scale modeling, implement digital twins, metaverse, next generation massively multiplayer online games, autonomous vehicle and robotics, large crowd simulation and supply chain and logistics integrated with that AWS supply chain and things like that. And last but not least, we now have a collaboration service which allows privacy and security of Teams voice and video call, file sharing, and serves as a service available within the AWS console that goes by the name of AWS Wicker. So this is a really straightforward. We are using one at this point, and also we have created and made available this service by a company that AWS acquired a few years ago, right? So now we have this AWS Wicker service that we made available at reInvent 2022. So thanks once again, and have a great rest of the day.